Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we try to make sense of corporate filings so you don't have to. Today, we're diving into OneSpan's latest 10K report. This report is kind of like a financial autopsy. It's an end-of-year look back, and you know what they say about hindsight, it's always 2024, right? OneSpan is promising profitable growth like every company does, focusing on areas like secure authentication and digital agreements. It sounds simple enough, but is the company walking the walk? OneSpan is talking about boosting its money-making power and being smart about how they spend. In fact, they say they want to focus especially on subscription revenue growth. The company wants to focus on the high-margin software and keep investing in hardware authentication so it can meet diverse customer needs. Sounds like a plan, let's see if it works out. OneSpan divides its business into two main sections, security solutions and digital agreements. Security solutions basically involve software and devices that protect online transactions. The digital agreements side focuses on things like electronic signatures and automating paperwork. Now here's where the story gets interesting. In the last couple of years, OneSpan was really pushing to grow its digital agreements business, but that wasn't happening as much as they wanted. They realized that things in the e-signature market were getting pretty crowded and competitive, and that their name wasn't as well known as those of giants like DocuSign and Adobe. So OneSpan changed its strategy. Instead of just chasing growth, it decided to focus on making both its business units profitable. It looks like this new strategy might be paying off. In 2024, both security solutions and digital agreements were profitable for the whole year. That's great. The company's subscription revenue jumped 33% and 28% year-over-year for the security solutions and digital agreements side, respectively. However, one thing worth noting is that security solutions' total revenue dropped slightly by 1% in 2024. This was because some customers moved away from using their Digipass hardware, preferring to use authentication methods on their phones and other devices. As people embrace mobile technology, the company says it will increase focus on software while continuing to invest in the hardware stuff. On the flip side, digital agreements saw its revenue increase by 20% in 2024. Good stuff. The company also finished switching to a software as a service revenue model for this side of the business. Now let's talk about money. I'm going to jump to item 15 and scroll to note 17 because everyone likes financials, right? In 2024, OneSpan had total revenue of $243.179 million. Most of that revenue, around 83%, came from outside the United States. In terms of the places where the company has buildings and equipment long-lived assets, those were mostly in the US and other places around the world such as Canada and Belgium. The US held around $21 million, while foreign countries had around $7 million. The top 10 customers accounted for 20% of total worldwide revenue. If OneSpan loses some large customers, that could have a significant effect on revenue. Let's talk about the people working at OneSpan. They have approximately 571 employees around the world, with about 317 in the Americas, 221 in Europe, the Middle East and Africa, and 33 in the Asia-Pacific region. It's a smallish company, and the success of OneSpan will really depend on them being able to retain key employees and attract new ones in the future. Let's talk about who actually owns and controls OneSpan. A small group of big investors have a lot of control. BlackRock owns almost 10%, Vanguard owns a little over 9%, and a few other own almost 6%. That means those investors could have the power to heavily influence the direction of the company and its price. Now let's switch gears and talk about the potential risks that the company sees. I'm going to scroll back up to the table of contents and click item 1A, Risk Factors. This section is always important to investors. One of the big concerns is whether OneSpan can keep growing its revenue. They are looking for growth. The company also expects the hardware revenue from Digipass to decrease. The markets where OneSpan operates are highly competitive. The company may not be able to compete against the huge names such as DocuSign and Adobe and some little guys, which could result in the loss of customers or renewal. As a global company, OneSpan is subject to changing laws and regulations everywhere. The laws concerning sustainability in Europe may continue to be costly to comply with and could materially affect the business if it fails to comply with the various laws it faces. I'm going to scroll to the beginning and talk a bit about the stock. As of June 30, 2024, the aggregate market value was roughly $479 million. As of February 21, 2025, there were roughly 38 million shares of common stock outstanding. The stock traded under the symbol OSPN and has an auditor of KPMG LLP. One of the biggest risks mentioned is cybersecurity. Since OneSpan deals with sensitive information, including being a cybersecurity company themselves, they are a major target for cyber attacks. This could expose them to liability and hurt their reputation. The company uses third-party service providers, which may also be vulnerable to attack, and the company may incur significant liability from those customers and third parties. Being an international business comes with a number of problems as well. For instance, trade controls, corrupt business practices, reliance on channel partners, communications with multiple languages, foreign exchange rates, and overall difficulties with staffing such a global organization. OneSpan recognizes the importance of its employees, so they have a hybrid workplace, monitor employee turnover, and also measure gender composition. Voluntary turnover in 2024 was 12.4%, which they believe compares favorably with technology companies. Total attrition was 24.3%, which was mostly due to the company's cost reduction efforts. The audit committee of OneSpan oversees the company's cybersecurity risks. There is no cybersecurity expert on the board. The company says that they have not experienced any material incidents for the fiscal year. I'm going to fast forward to the end of the document to see what they plan to include later in their proxy statement. It looks like information about the board of directors, executive compensation, security ownership, relationships, and accounting fees will be available. So what's my take on OneSpan? Is this a company worth paying attention to? On one hand, they finally reached profitability, which is a good sign. They seem to be aware of their weaknesses like brand recognition, and they're adjusting their strategy to focus on higher margin areas. They are definitely a smaller player in a world of giants. As such, the long-term potential of the company will rest on OneSpan's ability to stay agile. Looking ahead, OneSpan needs to manage its risks carefully, especially regarding competition, supply chains, cybersecurity, and foreign operations. I'd say OneSpan is at a make or break point. They've cleaned house, cut costs, and now they need to show they can truly grow profitably in a competitive landscape. The next few years will be crucial. I'd say OneSpan is a company worth watching, but not one to blindly bet the farm on just yet. Thanks for decoding with me. If you found this helpful, don't forget to hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of corporate filings.